key question in all of that is what to do about the kicker. You know, the kicker was one of those things that was put in place because of that recession in the early 1980s. And the idea was that if a recovery happened, that the money would not be sucked up by government to make it bigger, but would then go back to the people. Remember, we the people then voted on this about 10 years ago and put this into the Constitution of Oregon. So it's got to go back to the people to be voted on one way or the other. If you're more of a technocrat, I read a couple of magazines that really focus on state and local government. My favorite is called Governing Magazine. And if you're a technocrat and you look at how to balance budgets, the kicker makes no sense whatsoever. Because what it says is you are forbidden by law from establishing a savings account if you happen to have a good year. But from a political point of view, the kicker makes a tremendous amount of sense. Among other things, we the people have voted on it and decided it should be in the Constitution. And it really speaks to the big part of Oregon, and depending on how we measure things, it looks like at least 40 to 50% of Oregon have a real fear of more taxes and a real fear of big government. And Oregon has been pretty even between people who think government ought to be the set of solutions, government is the set of problems. And the kicker deals very well with that politically, with that half that feel government's the problem. Okay? So if you're predicting things and the economy does better than what the economist says, we're going to have more income tax stuff come in, and all that means right now is that we're going to get kicker checks. Okay? Beyond the 2%, all that other kind of stuff. There are ideas, and they've been around actively for about the past 4 years, of having the voters go back and revisit the kicker. Remember, not this session, but the session before, one of the big conversations that came out of that is we've got to, in effect, establish savings accounts. We have to establish a rainy day fund, and the school fund has to do these kinds of things, and all that idea. Great. If you looked at the amount that was going into them, it was pretty minimal. It would have built up if the economy had kept going. After maybe 3 or 4 sessions, we would have had a significant amount of money. When the crisis came this time, those accounts were cleaned out just like that. And remember, this is what the governor, Kulongoski, kept saying to the legislature: I will veto this plan because it gets into the savings account too early. I have to be ready in case we need it later. The amount that was in the savings account, $300 million-ish. And then when you put it together with some other stuff, they could come up with like $400 to $500 million. If you look at the total size of Oregon's budget, and you look at the size of the amount of money that we had in the savings account, it's basically the equivalent of someone who earns $100,000 a year putting away about $750, and that's it for a crisis that comes up in the next year. I don't know about your mortgage, but my mortgage, that wouldn't cover it. Okay? And so the savings account idea was the way we thought we were going to revisit the kicker, but it didn't happen. People are thinking if we have a broader context, like this campaign on the referenda on the taxes, if it takes off, that actually might generate a good talk about the kicker, and then you might be able to build on that. But quite frankly, we have the kicker from now until we the people decide to get rid of it, and I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening.